Buddy.
It's also offline on the YouTube.
Oh, now we're live. Woo.
Okay, yes, guys. I believe that we are live today in this beautiful day in our exchanges world. So let's start with a brief introduction. Welcome, everybody, for our webinar on academic quality and recognition. I am Rodrigo Enrique Roa. I am from Brazil, as you can see from the flag as well. And I am more than proud to introduce you to our speakers here today, members from the international team from SCORE, and also members from international teams from Scopy that are here attending. The first one that I want to introduce is Tara, the development assistant on academic quality for SCORE. Okay, she is already on screen, and you can see her.
Hello.
Also, we have for Scopy part our general assistant for Scopy, Tommaso Pomerani from Italy.
Hi, everyone.
Yes. Then we have Sartak Bal from India.
Hello, guys.
And last but not the least, Omer Yasir from Turkey. He is our regional assistant for Europe.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, so basically for the webinar today, I'm gonna share with you my screen, okay? Let's go there. Is everybody seeing my screen?
Yep.
Here. Okay, guys. We from Scopy and SCORE believe that medical students going on a professional or research exchange must experience the highest academic quality standards as possible. So it means that during the rotations, they can get to improve their medical skills, knowledge, to get to learn more about global health, to achieve accreditation, and get support for their exchanges, for their universities. So yes, this is our academic quality and recognition webinar, which we're gonna start now. And for this webinar, we have our expectations that we hopefully want to achieve at the end of this meeting, which are what is academic quality, to define what it is and its importance, what are the ways and tools to improve the academic quality in our exchanges, how academic quality leads to more support and recognition, and at the end, we're going to have also Exchanges International team role in improving the academic quality this year for this term. Okay?
May I interrupt you?
Yes.
People are telling us that you are only showing my picture.
Sorry. So what's going on here? Thank you, Omer. Yeah, I believe that now it's going to work. What is this? Yes. Now?
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you very much. I really hope that you guys have understood what we wanted to say. And we're going to start with the definition. I leave the floor now to Sartak.
Hi, guys. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Rodrigo, for introducing me. Well, to define academic quality, it is something that takes a regular exchange to an experience that will be useful to a future doctor. Basically, if I were dean of a medical faculty or a college, why would I want my students to go on an IFMSA exchange? There lies the importance of academic quality. It not only helps you to benefit yourselves, but also your college and your NMO. As you can see in the next slide, that academic quality without an exchange is a clueless talk, that you don't know what you are going to do during an exchange. And if academic quality is there in the exchange, as you can see in the next slide, you know what you are going to do, and you go on a better exchange. Now I would like to introduce Tara, who will help us in understanding more about the academic quality tools. Tara, the floor is all yours.
Hi, thank you, Sarthak, for the introduction. So again, my name is Tara. I am the Development Assistant on Academic Quality and Recognition for SCORE. So the way that we like to understand academic quality is that it's a longitudinal process. So it starts from the moment you select your students to the moment the exchange ends and is evaluated. And we're going to be going through all the separate steps in the next webinar. So in this webinar, actually. So step 0, the best way to make sure that students learn from their exchange and are motivated is to make sure that they have good tutors who are willing to host them and a good variety of projects and departments to choose from. So nice ways to do this are to contact your faculty, to have some sort of contact platform for researchers. So for example, a newsletter access or a list of email addresses, or even just cold calling. So if you find a list of researchers, just start sending them emails to see whether they would be interested in participating in exchanges. And we already have a bunch of support materials that you can send them, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. So if this is something new, for example, you're a new NMO, you're not really sure about how to do this, have no fear. We already have a how to get projects manual in place, which really goes through in detail how to go through this process. If you're worried about submitting projects for SCORE and it's the first time that you do it, we have already in place a project submission guidelines, which steps you through the process of submitting projects. And if you want to approach tutors in a formal way, we're going to talk about this a little bit more later, but there's already a tutor manual in place, which you can send to tutors and already details IFMSA in a formal and official way. Next slide, please. So the first step in making sure that you have the best possible exchanges with the best outcomes is to make sure that you send the best students. And this process happens through what we call outgoing selection. So next slide, please. So basically you have to ask yourself as an NMO, as a country, what competencies do you want to make sure your outgoing students have? So who do you think is going to benefit the most from the exchange? So the goal through this process is to select motivated students who will learn the most and benefit the most from their exchange. So this means that you have to figure out how to assess motivation in your applicants and how you're going to rank your applicants and select the best candidates based on this process. So if you're new to this and you don't already have this process in place, there's actually a manual we created on outgoing selection that shows how to develop this process to select the best possible students. You don't necessarily have to click it, but it's already there in the presentation, which we're going to make available later. So again, how to select the best students. Next part. So the next step to make sure that your students are the best before they even leave for their exchange and they're going to learn a lot is to make sure that they're prepared for their exchange, which is why we have this pre-exchange training or pre-departure training, which is already in place at the international level. Next slide, please. So it's a pre-departure training is a training meant to prepare your outgoing students for their exchange as much as possible. So before your students even take the plane to go on their exchange, we want to make sure that they have all the skills necessary to do well and to succeed in their exchange. So for example, you can give a research workshop, or what's really relevant in the context of medical students that are going to be practicing medicine in other countries where there are codes of ethics and medical practices that they might not be familiar with, it might be good to give a briefing on ethics and exchanges and intercultural learning and, cultural safety. So currently we're actually working with UNESCO on a bioethics training that should be available this year, but if not, we already have a manual that details how to develop this kind of training and how to prepare your outgoing students as much as possible to practice safe and effective medicine in other places in the world. So I really encourage you to look at that. The next step, perfect, next slide please, is once the students leave and they arrive in their host country, the way to make sure that they're as sharp as possible and they're going to learn and benefit as much as possible from their exchange is to make sure that they're well prepared and well adapted to the reality on the ground in their country so that they're well aware of how to practice medicine and how to do research in their host country. Next slide, please. So the upon arrival training is a training that's meant to adapt and standardize your incomings to the reality of practicing medicine or doing research in their host country. So it's a really nice opportunity, first of all, to meet your incomings, but second of all, to give them background information on your country, to give them, for example, some epidemiology about the host country's population. For example, if you have certain diseases or certain pathologies that are more prevalent and that are endemic to your host country, it'd be a really good opportunity to teach your incomings things about them. For example, in Quebec, we talked about cystic fibrosis, which is something that's really common there, but not maybe elsewhere in the world. So it's a nice learning opportunity. Also a really good time to clarify the host country's expectations when it comes to medical clerks. So students doing clinical rotations and their expectations for research interns. So to tell them, okay, so this is how clerkship works here. This is, you know, the structure of clerkship or research over here. This is what they're going to expect you to do. And it's also a really nice opportunity to do some skills development. So if you want to do some, you know, case history, some physical exams, run some research analysis workshops, it's a really nice opportunity to do that as well. So next slide, please. We have some resources that are already in place to help for NMOs in countries that would like to develop this kind of training. So last year we created the Upon Arrival training manuals, which you can access through this link. We already have available examples of Upon Arrival trainings from other countries if you'd like to look and see what other people are doing. And finally, we already have in place some form of evaluation form for the Upon Arrival training, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. So if you want to look at the impact that your Upon Arrival training had, we're going to encourage you to do that as well, but we're going to talk about it a little bit later. Next slide, please. All right, so while your students are in your country and, you know, their incoming's having fun learning a lot of stuff through their exchange, hopefully, it's a really nice time to organize some educational activities. Woohoo! So next slide. So what do we mean by educational activities? So they're all the activities that an NMO can organize for their incomings that are going to help them develop skills and gain knowledge. For example, some NMOs do suturing workshops so that their students learn surgical skills. They can be seminars on certain topics. It can be conferences. It can be case histories that you work through together and that you do together. So it's really a nice opportunity for that as well. And if you want to look more into what's already being done, I encourage you to go check out the educational activities folder, the link for which is right here. Next slide, please. Next slide. Oh, perfect. So what's in the folder? So for those who haven't already checked out what's in the folder, we already have a training on bioethics that was organized by IFMSA Morocco. So an example of what they do. AMSB Bulgaria were kind enough to share with us their journal club explanation. So they do a journal club with their incomings, which encourages their students to read scientific literature and be able to interpret it, which is an important skill in future medical practitioners. And then Portugal created how to create a scientific poster training, which is also a really useful skill to learn while on exchange. And finally, we have examples of Upon Arrival trainings in that folder. So if you're interested to see what's being done elsewhere in the world and you're inspired to implement that in your NMO, I really encourage you to go take a look at that folder. Next section, step 5, quality assessment. So you're a NORI, you don't really have contact with all 50 to 100 or incomings on a daily basis. So it's important for you to have an insight into what they're actually doing on their exchange. You want to make sure they're not just tanning on the beach and they're actually learning something. And a good way to do that is to have quality assessments. So in Scopy, we have a student's handbook and a checklist, which Omar are going to talk to you about more in detail. And for Scori, we have the logbook. So next slide, please. So what is the logbook? So basically, for a student participating in a research exchange through IFMSA, they have to write about what they've been doing every week so we can see concretely what they're learning and what they're doing in their research project. In order for them to have their certificate at the end of the exchange, in fact, they have to have completed the logbook. And next slide, please. What's really important in the logbook is you actually have an evaluation from the tutor of the student. So you're able to see how the student developed in terms of their different medical competencies. So we're looking at professionalism, so punctuality, attendance, professional attitude, collaboration, management, communication skills, and erudition, which is a fancy word for knowledge. So did the tutor find that they learned anything? Did they learn that they benefited from that exchange? So that's really important for you to see as a national officer to make sure that the exchange went well from the learning standpoint and from the competency development standpoint. Next slide, please. I'll pass it over to Omar to talk more about the handbooks and the checklists.
Thank you, Tara, for the logbook. Am I hearing myself? Oh, sorry. Okay, so in Scopy, we have something very similar with the logbook, and it's called the handbook. So this document is really a just for our standing committee. It has some parts for the students to work on global health while they are doing their exchange, and it includes some objectives we set throughout the year with other news, and it gives the student a brief information about the global health, and it also asks the student to work on the global health. So this way we can contribute to the global health knowledge, and then steps for the student to self-evaluate themselves throughout their exchange. And first of them is called the learning skills. This is the where they can write what they have learned throughout their exchange, and then they have to, of course, review these learning skills with their tutors, and then the signature or maybe the stamp of the tutor, but also some checklists for the so they can make sure they can ensure that they meet the expectations of the tutor. But through these checklists and more drawn. But next slide, please. Have like one general handbook for the students, which covers some checklists for the clinical rotations and surgical rotations, and then we have also specific handbooks which are also of some external organizations, and with the help of the liaison officers for medical education and the Scopy IT for sure. And there are specific handbooks for family medicine, anesthesiology, emergency medicine, obs and gynecology. So these handbooks are made specific because they have the checklist which are typically adjust for these departments to ensure objectives of the tutor from both your hosting country and your home institution. Next slide, please. So when we talk about the checklist, these are also the parts where the student has to evaluate themselves and then review it with the tutor. So the checklists are done once the student wants to end the exchange, and without them completing the checklist, they can get the certificate for the exchange. Self-evaluate themselves, they just have to decide whether they pass the item on the list, and then meet with the tutor, review it with them, and then get the signature and the date and everything else, and then we'll be fine for the rest of the exchange. That was it for the handbook. Now I can leave the floor again to the Tara. Next slide, please.
Hi, so back to me. The next section, we're going to talk about the concrete outcomes of the exchange. So for SCORI, this is the scientific report, and for both Scopy and SCORI, this is the exchange report. So what do we mean by outcomes? Outcomes means at the end of the exchange, there's something concretely achieved through the exchange. So the student either writes a report or writes an exchange report. So I'll talk a little bit about the scientific report, and then I'm going to pass it over to Scopy to talk more about the exchange report. Next slide, please. So scientific report, what is it? Next slide, please. So the goal is to have a final synthesis and integration of all the skills and knowledge that were acquired by the student during the research exchange. So the benefits is that the student actually should develop skills in writing scientific reports. It might be the first one they've ever done. They develop skills in doing literature reviews, and finally in presenting at congresses possibly, but it's also a really good opportunity to receive feedback from the tutor. So the fact to write out everything that you did and to have your tutor look back at it with you and reflect upon all of that is a really nice opportunity to consolidate all of the knowledge that was acquired during that exchange period. So next section, please. So IFMSA research projects already have a poster template that exists, which you can look at later by clicking on the link. And if it's for students the first time that they're ever writing a scientific poster, designing something like that, there's actually already a scientific poster presentation that was created by NM that teaches students what to include and how to go about creating a poster. So that's really interesting as well. Next slide, please. So this is the template that we designed last year for scientific posters. So if a student who did a research exchange ever wants to present and they don't know how to organize a template for a scientific poster, they're free to use this template, which is available in PowerPoint format. So they can just change the text and make it their own, add graphics and slides and tables, and they're free to present using this. So that's already a resource that's available for scientific reports. And presentations. Next section, please. I'm going to pass it over to Steve for the exchange report.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Tommaso. I'm the Scopy General Assistant. I'm going to talk to you briefly about the exchange report. What this is, guys, is basically it's a little bit different from the evaluation forms. Our students, after they go on exchange, they can actually write a report about their whole experience. So the main goal of the exchange report for the students is to elaborate the whole experience and consolidate the acquired skills and knowledge. Feedbacks for future students. So basically the main benefit for students is that with this report, they can actually measure the level of achievement of the exchange learning outcomes. They can be easily found, this kind of reports can be easily found on the IFMSA.org. We have the link in this presentation that we're going to share later, but you can easily access them through our website. So basically, and you can filter them because they can be filtered by NMO, by year, and so on. A useful tool for academic quality. You can read them if you want. The list is still, short because it's a very recent tool that has been introduced.
We can share it now, Tommy.
Yes, we can. Great. Yeah, if you can show the link. So I would say that basically the list, yeah, that's IFMSA.org. There's a specific page from Exchange Word. You can go there, reports and evaluation and statistics. And from this page that you can see on the screen, you can access this reports, both for Scopy and Scory. Actually, the list is relatively short now because they have very recent instruments and tools that has been introduced within Scopy and Scory, but we are working on updating it and implementing it more for the future. So I would like to invite you all as exchange officer or Scopy addicted or Scory addicted to share your reports if you have to share them with us or for the addition on the database. This is an example of a report. Student who went to Austria. So, right. And yes, basically this is it. An alternative for Scopy, for the exchange report, can be a case report, especially for clinical exchanges. So for the clinical collection, not the preclinical ones. Students who have done this kind of experience might write a case report, introducing a case and how they dealt with that case together with the professors, doctors, and tutors. And it's a good way to also to summarize the clinical skills acquired in experience. So this is mainly the explanation of the exchange report. I think I'm going to leave the word back to Tara for the rest of the presentation. Right?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. So the next part we're going to talk about is impact assessment, which is a relatively new concept in exchanges. How do we do impact assessment on the international level? Well, the only way we're able to do this is through the evaluation form, which allows us to assess our impact on both the national and international levels. So in case you weren't aware, the EF So the evaluation form for SCORI and for SCOPI were revised to evaluate the students' knowledge and skill development throughout the exchange last year. But it doesn't stop there, actually. We can actually assess the impact for all of the activities organized by an NMO to kind of concretize and have concrete details about what the benefit of having those activities was. So next slide, please. So how do we do impact assessment? So what is impact assessment? Basically, it's a way to quantify, so to have numbers that show and that prove that your exchanges or your intervention or your training did have a positive impact or an impact whatsoever on your students. So a good way to do this is through pre and a post-test surveys. So for example, if you're organizing an educational activity, you can evaluate the baseline skills of the students or their baseline comfort or knowledge level before the training happens, and then ask the exact same questions at the end of the training and see whether there was an improvement in these different skills or these different knowledge sets. So that's really something interesting to do because you're able to quantify, so to have a number or a percent increase in their comfort or their knowledge or their skills, and you can prove that it was your intervention, so the activity or the exchange on the international level, that had this impact. So next slide. So in the August meeting 2018, we gave a training on impact assessments, which you can look at in more detail by clicking on the link. If you're interested about the current evaluation form, what we do is we ask about different research skills. For example, being able to formulate a research question, being able to identify and use data, to apply appropriate research methods, to recognize limitations of research. The goal would be to ask these questions at the beginning and at the end of the exchange, and to see whether in these different subsets of research skills, whether the students improved by going on an exchange, whether they didn't improve, or whether they regressed. So next slide, please. The current evaluation form also asks about medical competencies. So we want to know, did the fact of going on an exchange improve the competencies that we typically look for in future doctors, which are a scholar, collaborator, communicator, a professional, and a health advocate. So asking these different questions at the beginning of the exchange and at the end of the exchange will allow us to see the exact and precise impact that this exchange had on a medical student's development of their skills, which is really interesting in the context of trying to lobby the importance of exchanges and the benefit of a medical student going on exchange to a dean. So next slide, please.
Hello?
Yeah, it's not switching slides right now.
Okay.
Perfect. So once again, what do these numbers tell us? So they tell the difference between the before and after gives us an idea of how the exchange or the activity shaped the medical student and helped them develop as a medical student, and quantifies in very precise numbers the impact of the exchange. Now, the evaluation form is not the only way to do impact assessments. You can actually assess the impact of all of your NMO's activities. So for example, if your NMO organizes an upon arrival training or a suturing workshop or an epidemiology talk, you can assess the skills that you want to develop through your training, both before and after the exchange, the activity, and see what impact that training had. So how good was your training at developing the skills that it wanted to develop? So as an example of a pre and post test survey for an upon arrival training, I put a link that's for IFMSA's Quebec's upon arrival training. So basically what we did was we had the students we assigned them a number so we know who the student was, and then we had them assess their baseline knowledge and their baseline comfort with different skills and knowledge, and we assessed it before and after the training, and that allowed us to see the relevance and the impact of our upon arrival training in very precise numbers. So if you want to check that out, if you want to be inspired by that to create evaluation forms for your own activities, you're free to do that as well. So next slide. All right, so what's the purpose of all of academic quality? Where does it lead to? It leads to recognition, as this meme very nicely illustrates. So what is the definition of recognition? So it's when an exchange is recognized as a formal part of the medical curriculum by a medical faculty. So that can manifest itself in different ways. For example, is the exchange credited? So for example, if a student goes on exchange, do they receive credits for it? Does the university consider the exchange to be equivalent to a clinical rotation, etc.? And finally, does the university support these initiatives? Are they willing to help in terms of finances, in terms of helping the national officers find more research projects or more departments that might be willing to take on students? So those are all different ways that recognition can be manifested. And if you're more interested on how to go about achieving recognition by going to contact your dean or by going to external partners, I encourage you to look at the manual on external representation and recognition that was developed last year to help national officers do just that. So next slide, please. So the manual is really good for kind of going through a very basic but effective strategy for how to pitch research exchanges. So the three-step process basically includes anticipating the pain, which basically means if you go to a dean, you can expect for them to be a little bit maybe not completely willing to jump on board right away, because they might say, oh, it's going to be really hard for us to do this, it's just paid vacations, it's going to be a lot of logistical problems for us, at which point you can say, well, actually, we're already implemented, we already have everything in place, it wouldn't take any more effort from your part, you just have to accredit us or support us. So kind of to calm all of their worries about accepting this kind of program. Two, you demonstrate the gain, so which is where impact assessment is really crucial, where you can say, look, we have these activities in place, we have these trainings in place, and concretely there are numbers that show that students actually really benefited from it. So it'd be actually really interesting for you as a medical faculty that works on the development of your curriculum to include exchanges and to support these exchanges and to help us. And finally, you can use the IFMSA cards or a unique claim saying we're the only organization in the world that does international medical exchanges, throughout different continents. We organize 13,000 exchanges per year, and we're really the best organization to be doing this for you. So again, if you want more details on this strategy to pitch, you can definitely go look on the manual on external rep. And next, we're going to have Tommaso present all of the different tools that can help you achieve recognition. So I'm going to leave the floor to him.
Thank you very much,
Tara?
Yes.
Tara and Tommaso. Just one last thing that it was really important to add here in the definition of recognition. It's also that not only the academic recognition exists when we're talking about it, we can also appoint the recognition of value of our exchanges. In the terms of that, recognition is when we are trying, for example, to have an elective that becomes something that is accredited from your university, so you can gain credits out of it. The value recognition is when your university recognizes also the IFMSA exchanges as an important part for your curriculum. But in terms of, they can move, for example, the date of an exam, so you can go for an exchange. They can reduce your absence in your place. This is mainly the idea that I want for you to take as well, the recognition of value and also the academic recognition. Okay, that was the only thing I would like to add on this. Okay, let's start. Tommaso, sorry for interrupting.
Yes. Yeah, that's very true. Thank you, boss. So you might be wondering how to achieve recognition with all this information that we have provided you, and if there is any support materials for achieving recognition in your local context. So you might be quite confused as this wonderful image of John Travolta on the screen. Don't worry at all. Next slide. Because Skopje international team and SCORE international team have worked tirelessly over the past few years to produce and create many documents that can be concretely used in your local context to achieve recognition. So I'm going to briefly present this list of documents. The first document is the Academic Quality Manual. Are you going to show it, Rodrigo? Okay, great. So basically, I'm not going to talk too much about this manual because basically it contains all the information most of the information that we have provided you during this webinar, just to say that we're not inventing anything. So this is the manual. You can see
Yes.
on the screen.
You will notice that in this manual, as Tommaso said, this can be very useful in terms of as a handout out of this meeting. So please really take it into consideration when you're talking about academic quality.
Definitely. Then there is the Manual on Recognition and External Representation, which was briefly mentioned by Tara in the previous slides, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And this manual is very helpful for shaping your own personal strategy, which can be feasible for your local context in order to get proper recognition. So it's very, very important. And because the strategy can be different depending on, that's my image, the picture. Yeah. And because the strategy for getting proper recognition has to be different depending on the target. You might develop a different strategy considering that you have to go in front to talk to a tutor or to your dean or to the externals and so on. So this is very important because it helps you shaping the strategy.
Yeah, this is mainly what Tara mentioned. If you didn't understand quite, like it really explains. It's here, the detailed version. Tara already mentioned it previously.
Yeah. So, okay, great. Then there is the Exchanges profile book, or better to say the Exchanges profile books, because there are more than one, because there are translated versions. This is a very important tool. It's a document which contains most of the information about our exchanges, about what Scopy and Scory are, and says how much cool we are, but in a formal way because it's meant to be for externals. And the most important thing is that it's also translated into different languages: French, Spanish, and Portuguese, other than English, of course. And so you can you might have this document translated in your own language. These are the main languages in IFMSA. Then there are the endorsement letters. This is a very important tool as well. They have been developed thanks to the help of the team of officials, thanks to the work of the team of officials, especially the liaison officers, and our external partners, mainly the medical associations, which have actually signed these kind of letters. They said that they recognize the value and the quality of our exchange program. So this is a very important tool. And you can go to your team, you can go to your professors or tutors and just show them there are international medical associations that actually recognize the value of our exchanges. There are many. So there is FIGO for gynecology and obstetrics, and there are neurosciences, there's emergency medicine, Association for Emergency Medicine Doctors, and there is the family medicine doctors as well, and anesthesiologists. So there are many associations. The very first one, the very first letter that we received, and the very first support that we received was from WFME, which is the World Federation for Medical Education. Here it is. That's the next
on
one.
the screen. Yeah.
And then we have the template for scientific poster, which was already introduced by Tara. This is also available materials for recognition because it shows all the structure and helps the students shaping the scientific poster and organizing the information. So this is a very important thing. And then the Scory Dean presentation is also developed by Scory. And this is a template for presentation of the Scory Exchange program when you go, specifically made for Dean of faculties. And I don't know if you want to show also this presentation.
You can show. Yes, we can show. Here.
This introduction to IFMSA and SCORI.
We also have it for Scopy. This is also allowed for the NEOs under the NEO folder, under the capacity building materials. But I'm not. They are not available for the Scopy people in general. It's mainly for the NEOs.
Yeah.
These presentations. Omer would like to add something here.
Well, yeah.
As you were the one responsible for this.
Yeah, we actually have the presentation for both the deans and the, I don't know, the students, to your LEOs, to other NEOs if you want to. So we have presentations made for each different audience, and you can just directly download it and use it to present a Scopy to your dean. And all the documents, well, we will announce that all the documents in capacity building are mostly updated to this year. If you want to use them, you can just directly go into your new folder. Then you will see link that database folder right in front of you. I think it should be the number 3 or maybe 4 of it. And you can just directly copy presentations, and there you will see the presentation for your dean.
Okay, Thomas, you can continue.
Yes, then there is two other important tools, which are the handbook and for Scopy and logbook for SCORI. They have already been presented by Omer and Tara very well, and basically, I mean, they can be also instruments and tools for recognition, because they actually standardize all the criteria and the objectives that the student is supposed to pursue during the experience. So that's a very important thing to show our faculties that our students are actually supposed to acquire new medical knowledge and skills while on exchange. And certificates as well, of course, which is the last document mentioned here. But then I want to talk briefly about Scopy Flyers, which is a very recent tool that has been introduced within Scopy. Okay, great, you can show them on the screen. They have been translated into different languages too, which are mainly English, Spanish, and Turkish in this case. It's very interesting too, because there are different versions of these flyers. Mainly, there's the one for students, there's the one for IFMSA members, the one for externals, the one for tutors, and the one for can you show me the folder?
Yes,
universities. The one for universities. Yeah, right. That was the one. Yeah. So mainly, you can use these flyers to promote your exchange program among IFMSA members and students. But basically, the most relevant version of these flyers, I mean, the ones that are most relevant to the topic of this webinar, are the ones for externals, the one for university, and for tutors. So you can use them to approach tutors or your professors in general and dean of the faculty. So these are basically the list of available materials for recognition. I'm going to leave the word to Rodrigo for the final part. Am I right? Oh no, yeah, I still have one thing. I have one thing to talk about. This is the list of university that has been developed and created in Skopje during the last year, thanks to a survey by academic quality and recognition, sent to the server during the last year. And we have come up with this list, which shows all the universities that recognize the value of our program, Skopje in this case. And it's very important. It's actually divided into two sections, because we differentiate two types of recognition of exchanges. The one that Rodrigo has explained before, the recognition of the value of the exchange, and then the academic recognition. And here we have the list. We are working on updating this list for this year, and this will be possible thanks to the survey that was sent to the server. I'm not going to talk about the survey because I'm not the one supposed to talk about that now, but actually this is one of the reasons why this survey is very important. So we are aiming at updating this list for this year too.
Yeah.
So basically what I have to say about these materials.
That's it. And only to summarize what Tommy just said regarding the list of universities that recognize our exchanges, you can see that as a way to highlight what he just said, we have two main types of recognition here. As you can see, the recognition of value that I'm addressing here, as well with the recognition of accreditation, in this case, the academic recognition. In IFMSA, you can see this list of the universities who recognize our exchanges in value, and in the same document you will be able to see the ones that give academic recognition to our students within IFMSA. Okay, that was it for this part. All right, so then we need to talk about the Scopy and SCORE IT role in academic quality and exchanges. At the beginning of the presentation, I already stated the importance of us because of what we think about it, because we believe that all medical students must experience the highest level for academic quality, and that is what is stated in our strategic plan that was approved in the last General Assembly. We believe that the academic quality is the backbone of our exchanges, and we must ensure that for our students. And with that, we developed our annual working plan with the aim to improve our quality in exchanges. With that, it was already mentioned that we are working with the NEOs on the survey that we have, the academic quality and recognition survey, that as a matter of reminders, the deadline is the 15th of December. It's really, it will be like really amazing to hear from you. We already collected 26 answers out of 100 NMOs, so Scopy active. Therefore, we really ask for your participation because we need to update every one of these documents. Not only this, but also the educational activities status of each NMO, as well as see how we guys from the Scope International team can help you to improve the academic quality status in your NMO. With these like status, the answers that you gave us in this mandatory form, we will know how to give you better the tools and how to progress with that. One other thing, like to address how we're approaching the NEOs and the Scopy members with the academic quality is an example, this webinar. This webinar here is mainly a tool that we are offering you to be more involved with the international team in the academic quality part, okay? So Tara, would you like to add, as you're a SCORE representative, would you like to add how the SCORE is working in academic quality?
Hi, yeah, so in most of our NORI reports, we actually do assessments of the proportion of NMOs that are already organizing what we call our AQ parameters. So we already look at who's organizing pre-departure trainings, who's organizing upon arrival trainings, and who has accreditation. So we do that through our NORI reports, notably before the March meeting and before the August meeting, for us to have an idea of how well these are already being implemented. So that's how we do it in the story.
Okay, thank you very much. We were doing like everything really fast, as you noticed. We were trying to keep everything in the timeline of 1 hour, in the time span of 1 hour. But now we would like to open this moment to hear from you, our participants, our amazing participants from Scopy, SCORE, SCOMI, IFMSA members in general. Let me just find where is our, okay, this thing. So would you like to open this presentation now for questions. So, Omer, please help me. Where can I see the questions?
You can just check the YouTube link for the presentation for the webinar, and there you will see the chat with lots
Okay.
of greetings.
There is any question? Can you maybe present?
Not actually, but if people want to ask questions, they can just write it on the chat so we can read it out loud.
Yes, guys,
Please
please feel
don't be
free
shy.
to ask whatever you want. Also feedbacks from you will be like really welcome. Yaman Hukan, I don't know where he's from. He say, all this is very useful. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for attending our meeting. Okay, so now, as we didn't receive any other, please feel free to do it if you want. We would like to give you brief summary of everything that was discussed. Okay. Tara, it's with you.
Yeah, just waiting for the slide. All right. All right, so I know we went through a lot of stuff, which is why I think it's important to go through a final summary of everything that we've spoken about. Okay, so like we mentioned earlier, the first part about being able to have high academic quality exchanges is to have a solid base of projects, a solid base of tutors. So tutors who know work well, and we explained how to do that. The next part is to make sure that the students who go on exchange are students who are motivated and who are going to be able to learn and benefit from these types of exchanges. And that's done through outgoing selection, which we spoke about. The next part is once you've selected your students, to train them to be able to benefit as much as possible from their exchange through the pre-departure training, which we also spoke about. The next part is that once your outgoings become incomings and they arrive in the host country, it'd be really good to give them an upon arrival training to brief them on how to practice medicine and how to do research within the host country, so they can be already at a certain level and already standardized by the time they start their exchange. So they understand what's expected of them and they understand how to do well during their exchange. Then during the exchange itself, we talked about educational activities which are useful to develop skills and increase knowledge. We talked about quality assessment through the logbook and the handbook and the checklists. Then after the exchange is done, a good way for them to consolidate their knowledge is to have outcomes. So for example, scientific reports or exchange reports. And then finally, once they fill out the evaluation form, which is extremely important, by the way, we're able to do impact assessment. So to go back and look over the entire process of the exchange and to see how much, to see the exact impact that this exchange had on the medical students' skills and competency development. And then finally, we finished off by talking about different forms of recognition, either by the Faculty of Medicine itself or by external representations that recognize the value and the importance of these types of exchanges that are offered by IFMSA. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Tara. Yeah, as you can see, all the steps were covered. We come back to the open of questions, if you might have any of them.
They have some. Do you want me to read it? Oh.
Yes, you can read it.
Okay, so one question from the Leo out of Lithuania, Vilnius. Are there any recent examples of NMOs reaching value or academic recognition from their universities?
Okay. Do you want, anybody wants to reply first?
From SCORE's side, I don't know of any recent examples of people reaching out to their universities, but I think for if you're interested in reaching recognition, or if you're interested in approaching your university, you can definitely contact me for SCORI or an RA for SCOPI, and they can definitely help you with that process. So, and the manual on external representation and recognition already exists that goes through that process. But if ever you want help with achieving recognition or you don't know how to go about doing it, please feel free to contact the IT, because we're definitely there to support that.
Yeah, that's really cool what Tara just stressed. From the scoping part, we actually, as far as I remember, do not have a recent example like the same. But for example, with this academic quality and recognition survey, we are also trying to get to know more about this. And for example, you can see out of the list, and then you can also approach these NMOs who has like more university that recognizes, so you can ask for them that. In Skopje right now, we are working really hard with the NMO sharing materials and NMO sharing experiences. Since the last term, we've been working on that. So yes, we're really open to this opportunity. Okay, I really hope I answered your question as well. As for Yaman have another question. Question related to academic quality, sort of. Is there any way to know whether exchanges offered in different NMOs are observerships only or offer hands-on experience? Yeah, I can reply this question as well. Through the evaluation form report, you can also find this answer. And for this term, maybe Omer is the one responsible with that, I believe also. We want to make evaluation form report from every NMO from our Skopje program. So yes, you will be handled with that. Do you want to add something else, guys?
Well, I think your answer was quite enough for it, because there isn't a specific place for in the exchange conditions for that. Some NMOs stated on the exchange conditions while others didn't. But the best way is to check with the exchange evaluation forms. You can always reach him by the way I think Thomas explained, and then you can check whether the students were allowed to do hands-on operations or whether they were just observers during the exchange.
Yeah, that was really important what Omar stressed about the exchange conditions, that you can also check that as well. So layout Vinius, if there are any, maybe they could share their experience on how they managed that and what were the main difficulties and how to overcome them. Yes. Yes. This could be a really cool for a Skopje Facebook group. If you could share that, that would be really great. I invite you to do that. Melody from Asenco, Colombia. Thank you very much for everything, guys. Thank you. And Discord regional assistant from the Americas, our dear Irving. Like Tara said, our RAs are here to help. Don't doubt to contact your regional assistant if you want to have a more extensive conversation on how to achieve academic quality in your NMO. Yeah, that in the case of the NEOs, always try to keep in mind our communication guidelines. And that's it for it. Leo's opinion. Okay, thanks. Don't mind my last question. Where am I? Yes. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending our webinar. This was our first webinar for the term. I actually ask for everybody here in the meeting, like the speakers, to open their cameras. Although Omer does not have a camera, but we can see our beautiful development assistant for academic quality. She is there, yes. And and Sarthak also. He's from India, by the way. And now in India, what time is it in India, guy? You're muted.
It's 11:30, Rodrigo.
11:30, so that's totally fine. You're just going to sleep. That's really cool. And this is Tommaso. Tommaso, some fun.
Yeah, I muted my microphone, sorry. Hi, everybody. Yeah, here is just 7 p.m., so it's almost dinner time.
Okay.
I still have plenty of time before going to sleep.
Yes. Homer?
Hello everyone. Well, it's also 9 p.m. So I still have like lots of time before I sleep. Relatively to Sartak. But sorry everyone, I don't have a camera at my computer.
Yeah. Tara, I didn't say anything, but if you want to say some like final words as well, be free to say.
Yes, academic quality is very important. It is the most important part of exchanges, in my opinion. And if ever you have any questions, Scoopy, Scory, I really like answering questions with NMOs, so feel free to send me an email, aq.scory@ifmsa.org, Facebook, WhatsApp, carrier pigeon. I will answer your questions. I'm happy to help for whoever would like more information about starting up AQ initiatives in their NMO.
Okay, thank you very much. To finalize with our presentation, our summary, our contact, please, as everybody said here, feel free to approach us. And from everywhere in the world that you might have right now, as Tara mentioned, keep in mind that quality in our exchanges is the backbone of our exchanges. We really want you to take this message home and have a quality day for everybody, okay? Thank you very much for attending. And bye-bye.